Welcome to Bedtime Whispers, where darkness comes to life and nightmares become reality. It was late Saturday night. A light drizzle discouraged any desire to be outside. So Alexei, a guy, jumped out of a cab as quickly as possible, skipping over puddles, ran up to his doorway, opened the intercom door, and dived in. Working late again, and it was a Saturday. But never mind. He had a long-awaited vacation ahead of him, which he planned to spend in the countryside with his parents and his girlfriend Alina. Climbing up to the elevator and pressing the melted plastic button, Alexei not much hit the wall with his fist, cursed that again nothing worked, and taking the phone to light the way, he moved on foot. Tired from his work, he lazily lifted his feet from step to step, thinking of something of his own. He had to walk up to the 9th floor, 2nd floor, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Alexei froze. His attention was caught by an incomprehensible sound coming from the garbage chute. It was a kind of childish mooing, but after sounding for a couple of seconds, the sound broke off, echoing through the entryway for a few more moments. The guy shined a light toward the manhole and, of course, found nothing there, shrugged his shoulders, and moved on. He was too tired for his imagination to paint scary images in his head, and he would have felt frightened. So he just as sluggishly staggered home to sleep. 6th floor, 7th floor. What was that strange grinding coming from that damn pipe? Alexei, again, stopped and directed the light from the phone to the garbage chute. Instantly everything went silent. He'd heard that grinding noise before, but he'd never paid attention to it, since the building wasn't new anymore. But now the sound was louder than usual and haunted him. Up the chimney must be the effect of overwork, thought Alexei, and, with a quick step, moved quickly to the door to his apartment, trying to get ahead of the scratching and rustling that still haunted him. 8th floor, higher and higher, and now he saw the familiar door. There was only one doorway left to go, half a floor and a house. But the thump of the metal trash pipe door behind him made him shudder and freeze. Alexei went numb. The only thing he could do was to turn around and point, with a shaking hand, his phone in the direction of the already open trash dump compartment on the 8th floor. The door was still dangling from side to side, creaking slightly. Suddenly, with the edge of the beam, he caught something a meter away from the pipe, pointing the light. Alexei stopped, breathing for a moment. Standing right there, in a dirty dress and frayed blonde hair, was a little girl, about 10 years old. Her face expressed no emotion. She just stared, with deep eyes, at the boy. What are you doing here?" Alexei never finished that sentence. His gaze fell on the girl's legs, which were not really legs. They were too backward curved, pale green, thin limbs. Raising his frightened eyes again, the boy saw that the girl, her mouth slightly open, her tongue black as tar, running over the fangs instead of all her teeth, and making the familiar mooing sound. Only now it looked more like some kind of singing, or rather humming a melody. Horror and panic took over. Instantly turned around. Alexei, throwing the phone, rushed upstairs. There were only a few steps up to the apartment. Behind him he heard something, whatever it was, climbing behind him. Once at the door, he frantically pulled out his keys and began unlocking the front door. His hands were shaking, and he did not manage to do it at once. But at last, being in the apartment, he slammed the door from the inside with all its latches, and, sitting on the floor, began to crawl away from the door. It was the first time in his life that he had experienced such terror. He stared with goggled eyes at the doorknob, which was slowly going up and down. Someone, or rather something, was trying to get into the apartment, trying to open the door. Later, light taps could be heard. Alexei sat with his back to the wall and could not take his eyes off. His phone was left lying in the entryway, and he had no home phone. He was trapped in his own apartment, but apparently from the shock of it all, after sitting like that for a couple of hours, listening to the sound of the door and the unceasing pounding of his heart, he finally closed his eyes and drifted off to sleep. The doorbell sounded like a deafening volley that pulled him out of sleep. Jumping to his feet, Alexei looked out the window, then at the clock, which showed 10:15. The ringing of the doorbell repeated. Alexei walked over and looked through the peephole. It was his girlfriend, Alina, asking who's there and making sure it was really her. He opened the door for her. What's wrong? I mean, Alexei was perplexed because he hadn't had time to tell her anything yet. Maybe he could tell by the look of her that something was wrong. You, tonight, around 3 o'clock in the morning, called me and asked me to come immediately and look in the garbage chute for some reason, she uttered. Alexei went pale. He slowly walked to the front door, opened it, and looked at the hatch, which was already closed. Have you been drinking yesterday? From the look of you, I did. It's not like you. Came from behind him, but the horror in his head was much louder. Silently he walked over and took Alina's cell phone, looked up his name in the phone book, and pressed the call button, putting the phone to his ear. There was a beep, and a couple of seconds later the display showed the start time of the conversation. From the speaker came the familiar child's mooing, humming some kind of song. Thank you so much for your attention. Subscribe to the channel. See you soon.